Hello, I'm Wheelgun Dan. Thanks for being here with me today to discuss the best handgun ever made. So now, I'm just kind of messing with you a little bit with a title like that. But hear me out. I do have some points to make regarding the quest for the best handgun ever made. There's a lot of like top 5 guns, all that, top 10 guns and all that kind of stuff. Well, I figure I would just go to the very best handgun ever made. The best handgun ever. If there was such a thing as the best handgun ever, what kind of qualities would it have to have? So the top quality is mass appeal. It has to be a gun that is so versatile that it can be utilized by people in all walks of life. It could be used for law enforcement. It could be used for personal defense. It could be used for recreation. It has to be something that is strong and durable. It has to be something that has enough power to be able to get the job done. A firearm's purpose is to strike a target and transfer a lot of energy into that target for whichever purpose. So it has to be something that could even possibly be used for hunting. It has to have mass appeal. It has to be able to be used by large male individuals. It has to be utilized by females who don't have the same size and physical strength. Now settle down. I'm not making generalized statements about people in general. There are some very large male human beings in this world, and there are also some very small petite females. That doesn't mean that all males are big and strong and all females are small and weak. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that for every strength capability, for every age, for every size, for every, you have to have some kind of a firearm. If there's a perfect firearm, the best firearm, then it would have to fall in a category where it can be utilized by the widest range of people. Big, small, strong, not so strong, all kinds of different people. It has to have a simple operation. It has to be able to last a very, very long time. Lots of things like that. So that's the basics of their mass appeal. There's really so many different qualities. So for the firearm that I have selected to just tell you about this, I feel like this gun is so perfect that it has become, in my humble opinion, it has become the gun by which all other firearms are measured. And basically what it comes down to, I think, when you're selecting a firearm, it comes down to essentially comparing whatever gun you decide to go with against this gun that I'm going to show you, which I consider to be the best gun ever made. So it then becomes an actual measuring stick, a firearm by which you can measure a productivity, efficiency, the functionality of other guns against this gun, so that if you select a different gun, it would be something that is either better than or not as good as. It becomes the standard, the gold standard, the measuring stick, if you will, for how all other guns are measured up to. So I should say, if you are perhaps listening to my voice or watching a video version of this presentation, and this is your first attempt to either buy a gun, or you just bought a gun, or you're looking for a gun, Welcome to the firearms community. If you have the ability to go to your local gun store in wherever it is that you live and buy a gun, you have the firearms community to thank for all those who went before you to preserve your right to keep and bear arms. So maybe you've never thought about buying a gun. Maybe you're buying a gun now for the first time. Just understand that your ability to buy a gun today means that there are those who came before you who fought long and hard to protect your ability to buy a gun, to protect your right to keep and bear arms. That I would think also would now go to say that you should very, very strongly consider who you vote for in the future. Look at their position on firearms. Are they a party, a political party that has historically tried to ban guns, or are they a political party historically that tries to preserve your right to keep and bear arms? Elections have consequences, and it is foolish, in my humble assessment, to vote for a political party or political candidates who do not believe in the right to keep and bear arms. So welcome. Now, let's get back into it. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what it is. I'm going to show you this gun now. I'm also, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a nice close-up video, close-up view of this particular gun, because I don't know how to insert a new image right into the middle of this video presentation because I don't have a producer or anything. Here it is. This is a 357 Magnum, but not just any 357 Magnum. This here is a Ruger GP 100. This is a 357 Magnum in stainless steel. Okay, so let's talk about the advantages of this gun. Now, there's a lot of different 357 Magnums, okay? This is just one of many. Why is this Ruger GP 100, why is this better than the others? So, let me go into that a little bit. It's going to take a while to go through all of the advantages here, and then once we get through the end of this, then I'm hoping it'll become a little more clearer how this is the gold standard by which all other guns are measured. So, stainless steel, first of all. If you live in a climate that, let's say Florida, someplace near salt water, where it's humid a lot of the time, there's a lot of salt in the air, or you live someplace where a fingerprint on a blue gun will be a rust spot tomorrow, stainless steel is a very good option. Yes, they can rust, but you really have to abuse the stainless steel before you can get any little rust pitting in here. It can happen. I know what I'm talking about. Don't argue with me. But generally speaking, they don't rust. I'm going to assume that you're going to take care of it, make sure it's properly lubricated according to the instruction manual, and that you are going to find safety classes. I would go shopping for different safety classes, how to operate it, learn what your laws are, what you're allowed to do, not do, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so the Smith & Wesson, for instance, model 686, I think is a very close second. It's a very, very popular gun. The one thing that edges this out in front is that if you're going to shoot a gun, you want it to be comfortable. If it hurts your hand so much to shoot, then you're not going to shoot it as much. You're not going to practice. You're not going to get the benefits of owning a firearm. This particular frame is very skinny in the middle of, if I take this rubber grip off, this rubber grip completely surrounds the frame. It's got a narrow frame, and the rubber surrounds the entire frame, so that when you fire this handgun, there is a really strong and powerful bang that is associated with it. And, laws of physics and all that, there's a small shock wave that then travels through this solid stainless steel gun, and that can go into your hand. And, in the most extreme example, there's probably a word for all this, but let's say, for instance, you have a, like in a car crash, if you're in a mild car crash and maybe you feel fine, okay, but it's the next day, that's when you're sore, whatever's going on, you want your hand to not hurt. So the weight of this gun absorbs the shock, and the thick rubber that's between you and the frame of this gun is what makes this very comfortable to shoot. Even if you put full Magnum rounds in here, it is very comfortable to shoot. It makes a big, huge bang, fireball. It's just an awesome spectacle of, it's just fantastic. So that's why if you look at the Smith & Wesson models, you'll see that there's a steel back strap here where the frame actually comes along and you can see the back of it right there. Your hand is actually touching that steel frame. It doesn't matter how much rubber you have in front of it. That doesn't help the shock absorption whatsoever. It's, okay, so that's why this edges out. The very first 357 Magnum was an N-frame 357 Magnum. They took basically a Dirty Harry size, big, huge 44 Magnum size frame, and then they just made a 357 Magnum out of it and stuff. That was a very popular gun for many years in law enforcement and stuff like that. So why is this another reason why this is a great gun? Because this is simple to operate. You push the little button, you eject the empty shells, you put the new shells in. It has 6 cartridges that can fit in here. You close it up. There's no safeties. There's nothing. You just point the gun at your target, use proper marksmanship, and then you pull the trigger and bang. That's it. It's very simple. When you're done, you empty the cartridges out of there, you put some new ones in, and then you're ready to go. So this can be operated by a female, a male. It can be whether you have small hands, big hands, big hands, small hands. It's mass appeal. It can be used for law enforcement. You can put high power 357 Magnum cartridges in it, but if you want to put 38 special cartridges in here, it's a much lighter round. It's not as powerful and it doesn't kick as much. This gun is heavy enough that if you put 38 special cartridges in here, then it has virtually no kick at all. So you can practice marksmanship. Either way, I really like the really big loud bang when this thing goes off, and I like the big fireball that jumps out of it, and I especially like how it doesn't hurt my hand. That's a really neat thing. Historically, for law enforcement, the 357 Magnum has spent many years in the law enforcement community, and there are studies and real accounts of shootings and all of that kind of stuff where the 357 Magnum was very effective in stopping the bad guy. Now, I understand that there's been times where the 357 Magnum didn't stop the bad guy. I also understand that the FBI recently has gone into a big spiel, a big stance. They've taken a stance saying it doesn't matter how big the bullet is, it doesn't matter how small the bullet is and how powerful it is, the handgun is, or how not powerful. That they're all the same. That they're all equal. Whether it's a 9mm or it's 357 Magnum or it's a 44 Magnum or it's 45 ACP or what, okay. So I'm a little skeptical of that. I do understand that, if the bullet is traveling less than, say, 2,500 feet per second, that the effect is going to be very similar regardless of the caliber. This particular gun you can get with a full-size 357 Magnum load in here. You can get like 1,500 feet per second is pretty normal, I think. If the FBI thinks they're all the same, then why didn't the FBI go to a 380 or recommend a 380 caliber instead of a 9mm or something like that, which is same bullet, a little heavier, a little more power? Why didn't they do that? Anyway, so the 357 Magnum has simple operation. It's stainless steel. This particular one is comfortable and easy to shoot. It is suitable and simple for first gun buyers. If this is the first gun you've ever had, if you are using a firearm like this for self-defense and you have simply one opponent who is trying to cause you harm, statistics say that the vast majority of self-defense shootings use far less than 6 rounds. It's entirely possible you could use more than that, but it's rare. It doesn't mean that it'll never happen, but you know what? They also make a 7-shot one of these, which I'll get to later. What's better than 6 shots? Well, 7 shots. So anyways, as far as power goes, as far as ease of operation, as far as mass appeal, the Ruger GP100 is the most versatile and widely acceptable firearm that anybody could use. Now, why doesn't everybody have one of these then? Well, what happens next then is you start comparing this to other kinds of guns. Well, if you pick up this gun, you realize this is a really heavy gun. Heavy is relative, but let's say, for instance, I like this gun, but I want something that is not so heavy. Okay, so now you find another gun that has comparable qualities as this, but it's now lighter. Okay, so then you go and you choose either a 38 special revolver. You choose a smaller revolver. The smaller the gun gets, the harder it is to hit anything. This has a 4-inch barrel and a good sight radius, and the weight and everything makes it stable so you can shoot. But these are the compromises that you then have to go through, this endless string of compromises. Maybe you want something that is just as powerful as a 357 Magnum, but you want it to be lighter. Okay. First of all, a semi-automatic, for instance, a polymer frame semi-automatic, let's say a Glock that fires what they call a 357 SIG. The 357 SIG is not as powerful as a 357 Magnum. It's just not. It was a nice try, but thanks for playing. It is not as powerful. The reason that a revolver is always going to be more powerful and be able to handle strong, more powerful cartridges is because of the way that they are made. These are very strong, very durable. They can handle a much greater charge, a powder charge, and the bang associated with this than a semi-automatic, any semi-automatic. It doesn't matter what it is. The revolver, especially the single action revolvers like you'll see me wear many times in my videos, the old West style single action revolver, they are just by design, they are capable of handling far greater chamber pressures when the gun is fired. So, continuing with the compromises you'll have to make if you want something that's very powerful. If you want a semi-automatic that's as powerful as a 357 Magnum, this is a very thick, wide gun also. Maybe you don't want a gun that thick and wide. A 10 millimeter is the closest in power to this particular gun here. You get to a place where the 357 Magnum, the bullet is 9 millimeters across. Okay, that's how they measured it. All right, a 9 millimeter, 357, a 38 special, a 380. All these, a 357 SIG, all of these, the bullet is exactly the same width. Not exactly, but close enough. Not to where you can see the difference with the naked eye. You need a micrometer to be able to tell the difference in it. So the weight of the bullet then varies according to how long the bullet is and how much mass the bullet itself has. But a 357 SIG in a semi-automatic lightweight gun is not as powerful as a 357. In order to get this kind of power in a semi-automatic, you'll have to go to a 10 millimeter. So it's 1 millimeter wider than the 357. The bullet is 1 millimeter wider, and then it has a lot more power. That extra power in 10 millimeters, to get this kind of power, even a lot of 10 millimeter guns that have been made wind up breaking and blowing themselves up because there's so much power. I have two 10 millimeter semi-automatic firearms. I used to own a Glock that was real big. It was chambered, full size, 10 millimeter, chambered in caliber 10 millimeter. It was very light and it hurt my hand. I do have at least one 10 millimeter video that you can go watch. It's a 1911 style firearm. It was, it's all metal, and the design from John M. Browning over 100 years ago. Those are 10 millimeters. Those 10 millimeters are fantastic. But again, you have a lot of weight, so it's skinnier, but you have a lot of weight, okay? So now you want lightweight, and you are willing to compromise and go with a little less power in order for comfort, in order for size, to be able to make it more concealable, more compromises. Again, you have to compromise. Instead of this, then you get, say, a 9 millimeter. 9 millimeter has the same exact bullet size around, but it's a lighter bullet. Okay, so you compromise by then saying, well, I'll make a lighter bullet with less powder, but then I'll try to increase the velocity and then use physics to try and have it hit the target harder, all this kind of stuff. It's an endless, maddening cycle of stuff. But 9 millimeter is fine, and 9 millimeter is trying to be a 357 Magnum, but it reduces the weight of the gun, it reduces the size of the cartridge. The 357 Magnum was originally made back in the black powder days, where you needed to have a very large cartridge to hold a lot of black powder. Now they have a new gunpowder these days called smokeless powder. It doesn't take as much gunpowder in order to make the bullet go bang. So now the 9 millimeter is a very small cartridge. It has basically the same size bullet. It has less powder, but it does basically the same job. It doesn't have it's not a Magnum cartridge like this, but it can get the job done pretty darn close. So you have compromises. Again, everything is compared to this as the gold standard. So it's got a bullet the size, basic size of a 357 Magnum. It has a little bit less powder than a 357 Magnum, as well as a little less powder for a 357 Magnum. You can hold more bullets in a 9 millimeter than a 357 Magnum. So these are ways that the 9 millimeter is lighter. It holds more bullets. It's more controllable. It's it's more comfortable to shoot quite often because it's very small. But then being a semi-automatic, there's a lot of other concepts you have to understand. You have to understand the concept of loading a magazine. You have to understand the concept of chambering the round. You can't tell whether there's one in the chamber or not here. You can look at it from the side and see whether or not it has, any cartridges in there, So everything basically is all other guns are a compromise according to how do they compare against a 357 Magnum, the best handgun ever made. Everything else is simply a compromise. And then the compromise isn't necessarily a bad thing. Don't take that as being, derogatory, looking down at a 9mm or anything like that. These are great guns, but maybe they're not going to suit everything that you would like. So all I'm saying is you have to then use this as the gold standard and then come up with a series of compromises in order to get something else that's important to you. If lightweight's important to you, then great. The 9mm is a very, very good choice. 380 is also a decent choice, but then you're really compromising a lot more. You're getting even smaller gun. The smaller the gun is, the harder it is to hit the target at distance. So the closer the target needs to be in order for you to hit the target. One of these you can shoot at a pretty good distance. You have good sight radius and all that. So anyways, that's the basics of it. This is the Ruger GP100 357 Magnum, the standard by which everything else is made. I too at times don't care. This nickname for this is also a wheel gun. If you didn't already know that. Yes, wheel gun, as in that's what I'm named after, this style of firearm. So anyways, in real life, when I'm not portraying a wildly popular and dashing internet personality, and I'm carrying a firearm for everyday carry and self-defense, yeah, I could be carrying one of these. I could also be carrying a polymer frame 9mm or a polymer frame 45 ACP caliber firearm. It depends on what mood I'm in, how much my back hurts, how much the heavier the gun is, the more it's going to weigh on you every day. And over the course of, 9 hours that you're out and about, you have to consider, well, how heavy is that gun going to be? So a polymer frame firearm such as a Glock or a Heckler & Koch VP9, for instance, is a direct competitor with the Glock series pistols. Those are things to consider. So that's one of the reasons when you evaluate this whole methodology of trying to pick a particular gun, why instead of this being one of the most carried firearms anymore for self-defense and everything, you find people going with either a Glock Model 19. If you want to carry a full size, that's a mid-size polymer frame 9mm handgun. If you're okay with carrying a full-size 9mm handgun, the Glock 17 or the HK VP9 is my favorite of the two. Between Glock and HK, I like the HK better because you can change out the side panels, and they've got side panels and they've got a back panel on the VP9s that allow you to change the grip so that it fits your hand better. If you have a big grip, small grip, whatever kind of grip you want, Glock doesn't do that. But the Model 19 is a mid-size gun. The VP9 is a full-size gun. The Glock Model 17 is a full-size 9mm. They also make subcompacts, which are very small, but they're more concealable, but it's a little bit more of a challenge to hit the target because it has short sight radius and all that. But practice, 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 and you'll get good at it. The subcompact 9mm in the HK is called a VP9 SK, SK for subcompact. I remember the Model 30 is the subcompact Glock, but that's in 45 caliber. I don't know. Maybe the 26. Is that it? The baby Glock? Subcompact 9mm. So anyway, so these are great guns for self-defense, because basically you start with everything you like about one of these, but then you make it smaller, you make it lighter, you make it to where you can hold more bullets, and then you wind up with an HK VP9 or an HK VP9 subcompact SK, or even HK P30 models. The P30 models have a hammer fire operating system with the ability to safely lower the hammer. Striker fires like the VP9s and the Glocks, they're called striker fire. You can't tell if it's cocked or not. There's different operating systems. So there's things to look at and consider when you're buying your first firearm, and that's why this is the measuring stick by which all other firearms are measured. Ruger GP100 357 Magnum, 7-shot, blue steel, with the Federal Premium, low recoil, personal defense ammunition. That was 6.
Yeah.
One more. And 7. This time with some Winchester personal defense white box 357 Magnum rounds that also have a soft point, a soft hollow point. Something like that. So it's a jacketed bullet, soft point with a soft nose with a hollow point. Let's try that. Now this time, these are some Winchester 357 Magnum loads. I don't know what particular kind because they're leftovers and I just had them in a box. But they look pretty powerful, so let's give these a try. sure to visit wheelgundan.com for all my latest activities and offerings. Thanks for watching. Howdy, I'm Wheelgun Dan. Welcome to my collection of videos. In this collection of videos, I'm going to talk about America, guns, and freedom. So welcome. Feel free to peruse the collection of videos. Should be a thing around here someplace to click like, subscribe, notifications. So enjoy yourself. What kind of bug is that over there? Okay, feel free to peruse the video collection anytime now.